us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and on the web at KBLA 1580.
That's right.
Again, you can find all of our socials at KBLA 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
By the way, if you miss any of our weekday shows in real time, you can always catch up by checking out the podcast of your favorite shows at your leisure. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Got your beer.
Follow the leader.
Oh my God.
Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
Word is born, you got 6 minutes on that jack, kid. This is real.
Hey, yo, check this shit out, man.
Hey, yo, God, give me a cigarette, man.
Yo, here you go. Yo, check it out, man. Check out what I got here, man.
What is that? What's that?
Yo, it's a letter I got from my man Nas, man. Word is born.
Yo, what it say, kid?
What up, kid? I know this is rough doing your bid. When the cops came, you should've slid to my crib. Big off black, no time for looking back is done. Plus, congratulations, you know you got a son. I heard he looks like you. Why don't your lady write you? Told her she should visit, that's when she got hyper. Flipping, talking about he acts too rough. He didn't listen, he be ripping while I'm telling him stuff. I was like, yeah, shorty don't care, she a snake too. Off with the big from that fake crew that hate you. But yo, guess who got us in the dome piece? Jerome's niece on her way home from Jones Beach is bugged. Plus Little Rob is selling donuts on the dime. Hanging out with young thugs that all carry nines. And nighttime is more tripe than ever. What up with Port Mega? Did you see him or y'all together? If so, then hold a fort down. Represent to the fullest. Say what's up to Herb, Ice, and Bullet. I left for $100 in your commissary. You was my nigga when push came to shove.
One what?
One love.
One love.
That's right. We only got one love. Cause guess what? There's only one KBLA Talk 1580. Yes. Welcome to Areva Martin in real time. I'm your special guest host, Farajii Muhammad, and I thank you so much for showing me some love by tuning in today. Man, oh man, Andy got me back to the streets on that one. Big shout out to my guy Andy, always behind the boards. And I appreciate each and every one of you for taking time out your busy schedule. If you're out and about right now, especially going through traffic and all of that good stuff, I hope you are staying safe and alert. And today's conversation that we got planned for you, the show we got planned for you today, will certainly keep you awake. And I'm very, very excited and happy about what we have on the docket as we have these conversations. But first and foremost, a little housekeeping notes. Make sure y'all do your due diligence. If you've been appreciating all of the great programming, the dynamic programming that we've been bringing here on KBLA Talk 1580, make sure you check us out on our website at KBLA1580.com. That's right, KBLA1580.com. You can also download the app for free on all of your devices. We would love to check you out there. You can also check us out on the stream as we podcast all of the shows. You can check us out on YouTube as well for all of those videos. And of course, you can follow us on social media at KBLA1580. Follow us on everywhere from Instagram to X platform on Facebook. And if you just happen to see us out and about, you just want to show us some love, you can even add us as a hashtag, KBLA Talk 1580. Just put it out there and make sure you follow us there. Also, make sure you follow my dear sister, Areva Martin, who has been giving me the opportunity and the privilege and the pleasure of sitting in her seat for the past few days. So I'm very, very grateful to her for that. But certainly make sure you follow her, Areva Martin, on all social media platforms. And you can follow me, yours truly, Farajii Muhammad, at The Real Farajii on Instagram, as well as on the X platform. I'm also on Threads as well, and Facebook. So I would love to connect with you. And speaking of connections, in a few moments, we're going to be bringing my brother, who is the recipient of the 55th NAACP Image Award for Outstanding Literary Work. My brother Jared Hill is going to be joining me in a few moments. The book that he was awarded for was Historically Black Phrases. You know, Jared, he always got something to say about the culture. So we're very, very excited to hear what he has to say about all of these topics that we have. And folks, you can join us as well as we're streaming live on YouTube. Post your comments, share your thoughts. And big shout out to all of those who are already on our YouTube channel and for Areva Martin and KBLA 1580. We truly, truly appreciate all of the great folks that tune in, check in, provide their comments, and just overall just be a part of the conversation. So thank you, thank you, thank you. At this time, folks, let me bring one of our great voices and contributor. He's an artist, he's a professor, an award-winning journalist, and he has the pleasure and the privilege of serving as the co-author of the NAACP Image Award-winning book, Historically Black Phrases, my brother Jared Hill. Jared, thank you once again for being with us today. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. How are you today, brother?
I'm doing well, Farajii. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. We got a lot to cover here because certainly, of course, as we do at KBLA Talk 1580, we have a lot to talk about. And Jared, I want to kind of get your take on this because, you know, considering everything that has been happening politically, socially, and just making sure that we're doing our due diligence, I wanted to first start off. We've been talking about Vice President Harris and the momentum she's on. Well, today it was announced that there is going to be an official vice president debate, folks. That's right, a vice presidential debate. So this is going to be a debate between vice presidential candidate nominee Governor Tim Walz, and for the Democrats, and the candidate J.D. Vance for the Republican is set for October the 1st. It's a vice presidential debate that is going to be broadcasted on CBS News on October the 1st. CBS News posted this on its social media earlier today, and saying that both candidates have agreed to do this debate in New York City. And Governor Tim Walz responded to the invitation on social media, writing, "See you on October 1st, JD. Hey, Jared, talk to me. We've been talking a lot about the Vice President Harris, that is, but, you know, there's been some conversations, of course, around Governor Tim Walz, but more people are starting to get to know who he is, start to look into his military records and to his background and see if this guy cuts the mustard, as they say, as being a progressive leader for the country. What do you make of Tim Walz, J.D. Vance, and this debate?
I think this is going to be a great opportunity for us to be able to see the contrast between the governor and the senator. I think Governor Tim Walz has already done a really fantastic job of kind of demonstrating to us that his command of the issues, his positions on various different things, and also kind of giving us a bit of his record. I think that when we look at J.D. Vance, we see someone who we've seen take both sides of many different issues, starting with, you know, his support for Donald Trump, which, you know, follows him having called Donald Trump America's Hitler just years prior to that. And I think we've kind of seen him kind of waffle on all kinds of issues. So I think it'll be a great opportunity for Tim Walz to be able to challenge him in those kinds of things, but also for J.D. Vance to have to answer specific questions.
And there are a lot of questions that people do have about Mr. Vance, right? I think more questions about him, so much more so than Governor Tim Walz. And you know, some of the things that J.D. Vance has been saying, you know, we talk about Governor Tim Walz kind of, you know, using the moniker weird to describe some of the views in the platform of the Republicans. But then you look at and you listen to a J.D. Vance and you wonder to yourself, Tim Walz don't seem to be far in that, you know, doesn't seem to be wrong in that description. Because some of the things that this man has talked about is just simply mind-blowing, Jared, to say the least. And I'm wondering, I'm saying, what year is this guy really in?
Yeah, I think one of the things that Tim Walz did really effectively when we were kind of still debating when we saw which candidates were, you know, up for the veep stakes here to run with Vice President Harris, Tim Walz was really effective in his media quite a bit and being able to kind of pinpoint a lot of different kinds of messaging. And I think that my favorite piece of messaging that we've seen from Tim Walz has been who's asking for this, right? And if we look at a lot of the different points that come from Donald Trump and J.D. Vance as candidates, we see a lot of positions that don't really have a lot of support, right? If we think about abortion, for instance, we know that well over 2/3 of Americans support a woman's right to choose, but we see the way that they proceeded with abortion, and like we're asking, like, well, who is asking for this, right? And I thought that Tim Walz's messaging around that has been really, really effective. But he's been able to pull that off in a lot of different ways. on different topics. And I think the weird messaging that we've heard a lot of people talking about them being, quote, weird, it's entertaining and funny and great for social media, but it also does point out this distinct way that these candidates are running. Like if we look at Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, we've seen J.D. Vance out on the road doing a bunch of different cities, following around the Democratic candidates, and we've not seen Donald Trump out on the campaign trail at all, which really also kind of highlights this campaign's difficulty when it comes to trying to figure out how to re-strategize.
Yeah.
I think both campaigns have had a time of trying to figure out how they're going to position themselves in the new landscape of this election. But I think Tim Walz has done a really great job of being able to bring the message home of we're not going back, that these people are running on weird platforms and asking for weird things for Americans. And I think that the two of them having a debate is going to be a great way for us to be able to see that.
So one of the things that comes to my mind as I'm listening to you, Jared, is that moment where President Trump, former President Trump, sat with the three sisters at the NABJ convention in Chicago just a couple of weeks ago. And he made he explicitly said that the vice president doesn't make a difference, that essentially if you vote for me, if you vote for president, you're voting for me. So do you think he undermined the credibility, the legitimacy, the value of the vice president by saying that he essentially has put J.D. Vance in this other space where he should not be taken seriously?
Absolutely. I think he undermined his candidate, and he also really highlighted for us the way that he thinks about this candidate, right? But we also have to recognize that Donald Trump, is a candidate who will be 82 years old at the end of his next term. And we have so much conversation around Joe Biden's age after that first debate, and his competency and his capabilities, and whether or not he could, run the country and run in an election. I think it's an interesting opportunity for us to have that contrast as well, right? We now see Donald Trump, who is not seeming the most competent, as we continue to see him doing interviews and doing a couple of events here and there. So like that answer at NABJ was actually quite telling, right? Because at no point did he ever say that he thought that J.D. Vance was competent enough to be able to run the country. At no point did he say that J.D. Vance was someone that he believed in to be able to step in on day one. At no point has he said any of that. All of his answer was truly about whether or not people liked Donald Trump. And right. I think that is a significant concern that we should be thinking about as well as we're thinking about these candidates.
Absolutely, absolutely. Folks, we are just getting into it. I'm checking in with award-winning journalist Jared Hill as we talk a little bit about the latest news coming from the political space, where the vice presidential debate has been set on for October the 1st on CBS networks. And that's between Governor Tim Walz and Mr. J.D. Vance, Senator J.D. Vance, and looking at what those two men will bring to the conversation around so many issues. We got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's continue the conversation with Jared. Stay tuned. You're tuned into Areva Martin in real time here on KBLA Talk 1580.
She's the real deal in real time. You're listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580. Tavis is like George and Wheezy. He's moving on up. Last year, Tavis was number 45 on the Talkers magazine list of the 100 most important radio talk show hosts in America. Wait for it. Wait for it. The 2024 list was recently released, and Tavis has jumped to number 33 on the list of the nation's most important talkers, making him the highest-ranked African-American on the coveted roster. Congratulations to Tavis Smiley from all of us at KBLA Talk 1580. We've got you black. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580, where climate is king.
Are you wet shaving? You'll get razor bumps.
Nah, Pops. I'm good with Gillette Skin Guard. How long you been growing that beard mama hates anyway?
Since 77. I shaved and got ingrown so bad.
That's why I use the Gillette Skin Guard razor, face scrub, shave gel, and moisturizer. So I don't have to worry about new razor bumps or shaving irritation.
Gillette Skin Guard, huh? Your mama's gonna love this one.
The best a man can get keeps getting better with Gillette Skin Guard. Buy now at a retailer near you.
Gonna feel a puff of air.
Zhang's Optometry has set their sights on staffing up.
Try the next line. Hey, Kim, can you tell our 2 o'clock we're running 15 behind? Sorry, we're a bit backed up today.
He needs an optometric technician to keep an eye on it all.
Where are the dilation drops?
Indeed, people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. You can schedule and conduct virtual interviews all from your employer dashboard. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
Oh no, stomach issues again?
Stomach issues?
Who are you?
Your pancreas. I could be the real reason for your diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose oily stools.
I thought it was my stomach.
People often do, but any of these symptoms could mean having a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and speak with your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my side softer?
Can I make my side firmer whenever I want?
Can we sleep cooler?
Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side. 94% of Sleep Number smart sleepers report better sleep. J.D. Power ranks Sleep Number #1 in customer satisfaction with mattresses purchased in-store. And now, during our biggest sale of the year, save 50% on the Sleep Number Limited Edition smart bed. Limited time. For J.D. Power 2023 award information, visit jdpower.com/awards. To find a store near you, visit sleepnumber.com.
The way we spend our time defines who we are. You're listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
And folks, we are talking to Jared Hill, who is an award-winning writer and journalist. He's joining us. He's one of our great voices and contributors here on Areva Martin in real time. I'm your special guest host for Farajii Muhammad, and you are tuned in to KBLA Talk 1580. And we're talking about the big announcement where vice presidential candidates, Governor Tim Walz, Senator J.D. Vance, have both agreed to do a debate on October the 1st on CBS. And this is a debate that Governor Walz has been kind of chomping at the bit to do against J.D. Vance, saying that he when he was first introduced just a couple of weeks ago in Philadelphia as the running mate for Vice President Harris, he made the point to say, and that he was ready and willing and able to debate J.D. Vance. Now, Mr. Vance, if some of you have not heard, he has made some very, very, how can I say it, Jared? What kind of comments has this guy made over the past few weeks? How would you describe it?
I mean, I've heard other veterans describe it as offensive, right? The way that we've heard that J.D. Vance.
Is it just offensive, or is it antiquated?
Well,
is it?
Well, I mean, if we're talking about the ways that J.D. Vance and also Donald Trump have been talking about Tim Walz, Governor Walz there, we hear him, attacking his service. We hear them making up all kinds of different things, but it's also like very on brand, right? To hear them coming up with all kinds of different things that nobody can prove, that nobody has any evidence to support, but also that other people will come out and easily refute.
Yeah.
About their service, whether that be about Governor Walz being in the National Guard, whether that's about his time as governor, like any of those things.
Right. And I think using that term that you brought into the conversation, offensive, I think some of the most offensive political views that Mr. Vance has put forth to the American people are views about women. From everything from that a woman should stay in an abusive relationship for the sake of the children to reproductive rights. And I'm wondering, Jared, if people, and particularly women, since women seem to be this voting bloc that all candidates are trying to tap into, whether you're talking about Vice President Harris and the efforts of organizing white women for Harris, black women for Harris. She's moving forward in those spaces. Donald Trump, we know, has his very troubled past with women, even though white women did come out and support him in 2016. But I'm wondering, for this space, this time that we're in, and during this cultural moment in 2024, how will these comments that J.D. Vance has advanced will land to get this next generation of young women, older women, this group of women who could potentially shift the election one way or the other? What's your take on that, brother?
Well, one of the things that I've found interesting in the conversations around this election, be it the ways that J.D. Vance and Donald Trump talk about women, or the Harris-Walz campaign and like the historic nature of that, has always been about wanting to do this so that our daughters and little girls can see this moment. But I think it's also really important for our sons and little boys to see this moment as well. I think it's important that we can see how the ways that this woman, specifically Kamala Harris, is being discussed, the way that they discuss women more broadly in general, and seeing some pushback on that, right? And saying that this is not how we see the country, this is not what we want for America, and this is not how most people feel, right? Going back to the comment about being weird, right? This is not what people want. This is not how people see women. This is not how people see women's issues. And so it's important that we as a nation don't just make this about like doing this for our daughters and doing this for our mothers, but it's like, no, men need to see this as well, right? Men need to be engaged. Men need to understand the importance of this moment for their daughters and for themselves, for their wives and for themselves, for their mothers and for themselves, because we have this idea that it's only supposed to be about doing this to serve the idea that a woman can do it, and uplifting the idea that that we want to make this historic moment for women, but men need to see this as well because of the way that we see misogyny being thrown around in this election and throughout the country. It's important that we have this moment.
Absolutely. The other part of this conversation is that, when you look at Senator Vance's stance on women's, especially reproductive rights, but then you complement that with Trump, his boss, with Trump's view of Kamala Harris, the vice president's view, with Trump's characterization of Vice President Harris as being, a woman that has just become black, or, he has made some offensive statements about the fact that she is both black and Indian. And then you have J.D. Vance, who has a wife that's Indian. And I'll always say to myself, like, how can a man respect himself? How can he look his wife in the eye and go to say, hey, I'm going to advocate for a man that clearly has no respect for one's culture, one's history, one's heritage, especially when it comes to someone outside of being, quote unquote, traditionally white? How do you think he reconciles that? And I know it's hard that you may not want to go into the mind of a J.D. Vance, but how do you think that
will... Yeah, the idea of asking... I'll deal with you later about making me go into the mind of J.D. Vance, but I would say that it's got to be incredibly difficult for a person who, as I said earlier, referred to Donald Trump as America's Hitler to now be his running mate. When you think about the ways that he thinks about women, and the ways that he thinks about immigrants, the ways that he thinks about various different types of issues, and I think that there's no real way to understand how J.D. Vance could be, justifying this to himself. And you also have to, there's a part of me that just really hopes J.D. Vance is a plant, right? That, because like we've seen many other Republicans do what J.D. Vance is doing now, where Republicans, and there's a long list of them, who were very clear that Donald Trump was a con artist, that he was bad for America, that he was an authoritarian, that he wanted to be a dictator, and all of the different things that we've heard Republicans say about him, all the way dating back to 2015 when he started running. Yeah. J.D. Vance is also one of those people who we've seen now shift his position on that because of his proximity to Trump, and not because he met Trump and thought, oh, wow, he's actually really fantastic. He made this change because he wanted power, right? Because he wanted to be proximal to Donald Trump when it comes to the White House. And so I don't think there's a whole lot of integrity in the way that we look at J.D. Vance's positions on these various different issues And so the idea of jumping into his mind to understand how he's figuring it out, I don't even know that there's like a logical way to do that.
Yeah, that's very real, and I think it's even more telling of the type of man that he is willing to, sacrifice and compromise his own personal and his own family's integrity to in that pursuit of power. And I just don't quite understand it. But I guess that's the way politics go. I mean, what is that? I guess that's we supposed to do that because that's if you want to get further along in this process, then you're going to have to make some compromises. But that doesn't sit well with me, Jared.
Well, I think that's what we see on one side of the ticket, right? I don't know that that's politics more broadly, but I definitely think that we've seen plenty of Republicans. Even in the last couple of days, we've seen Nikki Haley come out and she's trying to make the case for Donald Trump, but also trying to criticize Kamala Harris. And I think that as we see more and more of this, my hope is that the light bulb will go on for some people to see like, wait, what's happening here? But also like, this is not new, right? We've seen this going on for the last 8 or 9 years, and plenty of people have still continued to kind of succumb to it. And so I'm not exactly sure that I don't know how it's going to play out come 3 months from now when we get to election day, but I do know that voters have got to be able to see the contrast of, wow, these people really don't even have principles. They don't have anything that they stand for. They have been able to be on both sides of every single kind of issue, whatever was effective for them. And I mean, even most recently, if we think about Project 2025, we've clearly seen them like lay out an agenda for what they want, but then back away from it when people found out about it and didn't like it. And so the idea that they have a moral compass or some kind of North Star or really even a policy agenda that they would stand behind in public, that hasn't materialized for them.
Not at all. Not at all, brother. Look, we got to take another quick pause. When we come forward, we're going to shift gears from talking about the vice president debate and those issues. But we are going to stay on the same track of talking about women. I want to get into a conversation about Representative Ilhan Omar, who has done what her colleagues in the squad was not able to do, which was to fend off primary challengers from any type of defeat. She has won her primary in Minnesota, which essentially broke a recent streak of progressive defeats. And so we want to talk a little bit more about that on the other side, along with some other political topics with Jared Hill. So stay with us. We still got a lot more to talk about in the next segment here on Areva Martin Real Time, right here on KBLA Talk 1580.
Areva time is the right time. More of Areva Martin in real time when we come forward.
I'm Amber Payton. Here's the latest on the Black Information Network. New York Governor Kathy Hochul is announcing an expansion of maternal and pediatric health care at Elmhurst Hospital in Queens. Hochul says more than $27 million in state funding will go toward doubling the size of the Women's Pavilion and building a new pediatric intensive care unit. She says the investment will combat the maternal mortality crisis, which disproportionately impacts women of color by increasing access to prenatal care and services like mental health counseling. St. Paul Mayor Melvin Carter presented his $855 million budget proposal, which includes a 7.9% property tax levy increase. Carter, who was Black, addressed the city's housing crisis and proposed amending the rent stabilization ordinance to exclude properties built after 2004. He also plans to increase funding for the fire department with a focus on the east side and renovate the Excel Energy Center. That's the latest. I'm Amber Payton on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network.
The Moon Fire in Azusa Canyon has a full closure of San Gabriel Canyon in both directions from East Fork to Crystal Lake. It has currently burned 15 acres and 75% of it has been contained. However, north of Crystal Lake is an ongoing permanent closure and watch for stop delays until further notice. A similar accident in Pasadena involving a big rig has 2 right lanes blocked on the 210 East after the Mountain Seco Street interchange, and stop delays continue from Arroyo Boulevard, Windsor Avenue split up to 15 minutes. In Sepulveda Pass, traffic is still recovering from an earlier accident on the 405 North after Mulhole and Skirball Center Drive split, with over 40 minutes running heavy in recovery from National Boulevard.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. Blindster is a family-run business that began in 2010, and we've sold millions of custom blinds, shades, and shutters and received over 100,000 five-star reviews. Don't hire an expensive pro. Do it yourself and save big at blindster.com.
Is this the Tiger? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Dodgers take a 5-game winning streak into tonight's game in Milwaukee. They are 2-0 since Mookie Betts returned to the lineup on Monday. Mookie was out 7 weeks recovering from a broken hand. Florida A&M is the only HBCU school that landed in the FCS preseason top 25 college football poll. FAMU was ranked 25th. The Rattlers were 12-1 last season and finished as the Black College Football National Champions. Shout out to my alma mater, Illinois State University. The mighty Redbirds are ranked 20th in the FCS poll. A little more perspective on Colin Kaepernick's desire to return to the NFL. At 36, Kaepernick is the same age as 3 NFL starting quarterbacks: the Rams' Matthew Stafford, Atlanta's Kirk Cousins, and Russell Wilson with Pittsburgh. New York Jets quarterback Aaron Rodgers is 40. If somebody gives Kaepernick a chance, his age should not be a factor. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader.
KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader.
If you're not following KBLA Talk 1580 on all of our socials, then you're missing out. Download our app and find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and on the web at KBLA 1580.
That's right.
Again, you can find all of our socials at KBLA 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
By the way, if you miss any of our weekday shows in real time, you can always catch up by checking out the podcasts of your favorite shows at your leisure. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Follow the leader. Oh my God. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
We asked seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month. If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
KBLA Talk 1580 invites you to join us for a book party celebrating The Covenant with Black America 20 years later. Almost 2 decades ago, the Covenant book, compiled and edited by Tavis Smiley, climbed to #1 on the New York Times bestsellers list and stayed there for weeks. The first book by a black-owned publisher to achieve such a feat. The urgency of the issues that matter most to black fellow citizens has only intensified, especially in this critical election year. On Wednesday evening, August 14th, 6 to 9 p.m., come meet Tavis Smiley alongside Covenant contributors including Cornel West, Connie Rice, Mark Ridley Thomas, Elisa Orduna, Tyrone Howard, and Melina Abdullah as they sign copies of The Covenant with Black America 20 years later. You can purchase your books on site and get them autographed. That's Wednesday evening, August 14th, 6 to 9 p.m. in the city of Los Angeles. Admission is free, but you must register at KBLA1580.com. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black. There's no time like the present. Let's get back to more of Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
Let's get back to our conversation with Jared Hill here on Areva Martin in Real Time. I'm your special guest host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in to us here on KBLA Talk 1580. And we want to switch gears a little bit as we're having these conversations about just some of the trending political news that's been happening today. And again, folks, if you haven't had a chance to jump on our live stream, you can do so. Just check us out on YouTube at KBLA 1580. We would love to hear what you have to say. Big shout out to everybody that's on the live stream right now. We got a lot of folks that are checking in, providing their comments, sharing their thoughts about what's going on. And I cannot thank you all enough for being in the chat, joining us and for the conversation. So you could do the same. I see you, Howard Daniel Graves Jr. Howard, thank you so much, brother, as always, for being with us in a live stream. And so many more are checking in, and you could do the same. Just go to KBLA 1580 on YouTube right now. Jared, let's go back to you. Award-winning journalist, author, co-author. He's a writer. He is a culture critic, and he is one of our great contributors here on Areva Martin in real time. Jared, I want to talk about this other political news coming out of the state of Minnesota. That's right, Minnesota, where Representative Ilhan Omar was able to defeat her challenger, a Democrat by the name of Don Samuels. Now, what makes this particular race so significant, and this is why we're talking about it, is because Ilhan Omar is part of that group of political lawmakers known as the quote-unquote the Squad that was composed of Jamal Bowman, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC out of New York, Cori Bush out of St. Louis, and now we also have Representative Ilhan Omar. And just these are a group of progressive, some people like to use the term democratic socialists, others just use the moniker of progressive, but this is a group of progressive, forward-thinking Democrats, mostly younger Democrats, that have taken Capitol Hill by storm. In the past couple of primaries related to these progressives, when I'm speaking of Representative Jamal Bowman, Representative Cori Bush, they were eliminated from their, they were defeated in their primaries because of their stances of the U.S. involvement in Gaza. And as a result of that, AIPAC affiliated, and this is the Jewish lobby organization, AIPAC, the AIPAC, either AIPAC themselves or AIPAC affiliated PACs, political action committees, decided to put some money in the coffers of their challengers and essentially defeating them. Now we're seeing that this particular trend that was happening with Jamal Bowman, Cori Bush, has essentially stopped with Ilhan Omar because her challenger, Don Samuel, was running on that same train. Don Samuel actually appeared. He was a guest on the Tavis Smiley show just this past Tuesday, on Tuesday morning, LA time, and he talked about his candidacy, Jared, and he said that he didn't get any money from AIPAC, the lobby organization, but there have been some reports that say that he quietly received some money from an AIPAC-affiliated super PAC, the United Democracy Project, and that there was some money funneled into his account on the quiet, on the low. But as a result of that, Mr. Samuels also expressed that he was working with about 1.6 million, whereas the incumbent Representative Ilhan Omar had about 6 million in the bank. And essentially, that came to be probably one of the biggest factors for her to fend off this primary challenger. So what's your take of this trend that we have seen where progressive seems to be in the crosshairs of certain lobbies and organizations that want to get them out of the picture? Talk to me, Jared.
I think Representative Omar, her race, obviously, her being successful in this primary is going to be a great moment for Democrats. But I also think that it is highlighting for us the importance of the down ballot races, right? As we think about, we spend so much time talking about the presidential race because it's something that affects us in such a major way, but we don't often give enough attention to the down ballot races. And I think that this is one of those instances that does put that back in the front line for us. We're looking at Minnesota, a state where Governor Tim Walz is from, on the ticket, but we're also thinking about how these different candidates are going to show up when they come into Congress. And I think that Ilhan Omar and the Squad, being as progressive as they have been, they've been very effective in a lot of different ways. Ilhan Omar has a record that she's really proud to run on and helping her district, helping people with what they call, the bread and butter issues in her district. And I think that it's going to be, it'll be a challenging election, but I think that Ilhan Omar will be victorious come November.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And like I say, we've been seeing a number of different reports. I've personally read it from everywhere from the Jewish Insider publication to other spaces where they're saying that, this super PAC, the United Democracy Project, and I'm looking at a report that came directly from NBC News earlier today. It was said the United Democracy Project, a super PAC tied to the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, AIPAC, the pro-Israel lobbying group, did not engage in Omar's race after having spent millions to defeat Bush and Bowman. Speaking of Representative Jamal Bowman of New York and Cori Bush of Missouri. And so she had she spent more than $6.1 million on the race, and he spent $1.2 million on this year's race. What do you make of this Jared, this, not just this trend, but progressivism is back on, is like at the forefront now when you have a Governor Tim Walz, right? Some people would say that Vice President Harris is slowly moving into a more progressive space. Do you think that progressivism will become the new normal in this country, considering that people are tired of just the binary choices of Democrat and Republican? People are redefining relationships. People want to have more of a say about the personal freedoms that they enjoy. Will progressivism become the new normal?
Well, I think if we look at it from a data and statistics standpoint, it already has become the new normal, right? I think it already, if we look at the way voting trends have gone, if we look at the ways that voters have registered themselves, we know that if we're looking at the top of the ticket, Republicans haven't been winning popular votes across the country when we're looking at these elections for decades, right? And they know that. That's why we see them gerrymandering. That's why we see them challenging whether or not elections are fair. This is why we see them installing various different kinds of folks in different positions to be able to challenge the election. This is why we see them moving in the way that we see them moving. I definitely think that progressivism has taken root, and I think that that's why we see Republicans so scared in the way that they are. Why we see them trying to game the system in the way that they have been doing for years. That's why we see them trying to sack the Supreme Court. That's why we see them trying to change who can vote in what election and trying to take away the voting rights from people.
Yeah.
We can clearly see them saying that voting is not the way that they want people that they want to be able to access and allocate power. And I think that it's going to continue in that way. Progressivism is something that is not just about a political lens. It's about what people want and what people need. And we're thinking about whether we're talking about women's rights or LGBTQ rights or Black folks' rights or the various different areas of intentionally marginalized groups. And I think that we're going to continue to see that happen as the Republicans, the GOP, the conservatives have to kind of figure out who they are and what they want, right, and who they speak for.
Yeah.
I think that as we move past this election come November, should Republicans lose in the way that they should, that's going to be a real question for them to answer. Like, who are we now, right? If Donald Trump isn't our candidate, if these crazy ideas that we can't even really defend aren't the issues that we're going to take on, what are the issues that we're going to believe in? What are the issues that they're going to stand by? And who are the people that they're going to be defending? I think progressivism has shown a lot of value for a lot of people in making their lives better. I think we also continue to see that progressive candidates tend to be better for the economy. They tend to be better for people. They tend to be better in myriad different kinds of ways.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We're going to take another quick pause. When we come forward, I want to get your take, Jared, on the idea of immigrant representation, because Representative Ilhan Omar, in one of her ads, she said that Minnesota might be cold, but those who call this place home, you are warm and caring, hardworking, resilient, and proud. You welcomed me as a refugee. You taught me the power of organizing and democracy. You are who I fight for every day to deliver food security, affordable housing, and health care. And I'm wondering, in that particular message, as she talks about her being a refugee, her coming from that space, are we going to expect to see more immigrant representation in this country? as a result of what you're saying as the new normal of progressivism. So I want to get your take on that and so many more other issues. Folks, stay with us. We're tuned in. We've been talking to Jared Hill, award-winning journalist, right here on Areva Martin in real time here on KBLA Talk 1580.
She's the real deal in real time. You're listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
Oh, man. Looks like Bobby needs a ride to the airport again.
Grab the keys.
Who's taking Auntie and her friends to the swap meet?
Grab the keys.
How about we drop these boxes off at Miss Johnson?
Grab the keys.
Whether you're giving rides or hauling gear, you're all about getting things done. So do it all in a Chevy SUV. From the versatile Equinox and Sporty Blazer to the roomy Traverse, our lineup of SUVs will carry you through every adventure. All you have to do is...
grab the keys.
That's how we do. Head to your local Chevy dealer, where well-qualified buyers get 1.9% financing on all 2024 Malibu, Colorado, Blazer, Equinox, Trailblazer, and Traverse limited models. Chevrolet. Together, let's drive.
1.9% APR for 36 months. Monthly payment is $28.60 for every $1,000 you finance. Example down payment 15.8%. Must finance with GM Financial. Some customers may not qualify. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take new retail delivery by 7/1/24.
Tips to help improve basic steps for building a budget in 2024. Building a budget can help you achieve and reach your financial goals. With a budget, you can keep track of your spending, avoid and get out of debt, limit overspending, pay bills on time, and build solid savings habits. What's the best way to get started? Figure out how much to set aside for expenses, like rent, mortgage, bills, groceries, and entertainment. Understanding your past financial habits can help you make the proper adjustments for your budget. Adjusting to a budget can take time as you work to find the right balance, but keep working on it. For more financial health tips, visit chase.com or stop by a local branch. This segment is sponsored by J.P. Morgan Chase & Company. Join Black Women for Wellness 25th Annual Reproductive Justice Conference on August 15th at the California Endowment Center. Unite to protect Black women's rights and become an advocate for change. Tickets on sale now at bwwla.org. That's bwwla.org.
We're not just a thermometer recording and broadcasting popular opinion. We aim to be a thermostat, transforming the conversation about climate justice in our community. This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk 1580.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you in the African-American communities of Los Angeles? Well, buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
The way we spend our time defines who we are. You're listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
You've been listening to Jared Hill here on Areva Martin in real time. I'm your special guest host, Farajii Muhammad, and Jared, an award-winning journalist, bringing us his analysis about some of these trending political topics. Talking about Representative Ilhan Omar, her primary win in Minnesota yesterday. It opens up the door, I think, for more conversation about, as we spoke about just in the last segment, talking about progressivism becoming the new normal in this country. And it makes me think about immigrant representation. That, for example, if Governor Tim Walz becomes the vice president, if he ascends to the presidency, his lieutenant governor is a Native American woman. And she would naturally go into the role of governor for the state of Minnesota, first. But we're starting to see more and more of those who are coming from immigrant families, those who have traveled across the waters and have, become first generation, second generation immigrants in this country, that they are ascending the political ladder. They're moving further along, and they're getting involved in the process, being intimately involved in the system, and serving as representatives. And I don't know if people are afraid or not, but it seems like there is some embracing of these individuals to come into the space and to represent folks who are born and bred here in America. Is my assessment off on this? Is this something that you're seeing, a trend that's growing?
I think we've seen Republicans really trying to run against immigration, right? Run against immigrants in general, and really specific types of immigrants, Black and brown immigrants specifically.
Right.
And it's an interesting dynamic if you consider just you brought in Tim Walz into this, but if we think about Donald Trump is married to an immigrant. J.D. Vance is married to a first generation woman whose family is immigrants. Kamala Harris' family was of immigrants. If we think about the way that positions this conversation, it's an interesting dynamic to continue to see them continue to attack immigrants. But what's been interesting to me about it is, again, we see Republicans really kind of positioning immigrants as criminals, as people who are really hurting our economy, who are harming us with crime and all of those different types of messages that we continually see from them. However, the data doesn't support any of that, right? We know that immigrants tend to commit less crime because they want to engage the legal system as little as possible. We know that they tend to contribute to our economy in extraordinary ways. We know that immigrants have a really positive impact on various different aspects of American life. And as we hear these candidates continue to disparage immigrants and speak about it in ways that are not favorable, it runs in the face of all of the information and data that exists.
And I think it's noteworthy for us to make the point that a lot of white lawmakers are from immigrant families. Like, they too are first and second generation immigrants themselves, coming from different places in Europe and other parts of the globe, right? But they...
Well, go ahead.
No, I'm listening. Go ahead, brother.
Well, I think the important point there, right, when we say they're talking about specific kinds of immigrants from specific kinds of places,
right?
If immigration was really a major issue to Republicans, they're not having any conversation about the immigrants who've overstayed their visas that tend to come from that don't tend to be as Black and brown, right? That come from European countries and things like that, right? And so if immigration is a real significant issue, and we're really concerned about who's here and who should be and who shouldn't be, that certainly doesn't seem to be an issue.
Hey, brother. Hey, Jarrett. We gotta say it, man. We gotta say it. It reeks of hypocrisy. It reeks of hypocrisy. And so immigration laws, immigration reform, all talks of immigration is for Black and brown folks. But if you come from Europe, if you're coming from other spaces where you're seen and perceived to be white, you get a pass. You get a pass. It's not an immigration problem. It's you're relocating. You're relocating, but that's the hypocrisy. That's the hypocrisy. We got a few moments left, Jared. I want to kind of get your take very quickly. We got about 3 minutes. I want to, give you, because as much as we are talking about these issues of immigrations and whatnot, Trump is still putting out there. He is still laying the groundwork, as some political scientists and scholars and pundits are saying, that he's laying the groundwork for to say that this upcoming election was rigged. Now, we all know that he thought it was money in a bank when he was running against Joe Biden. But now that he cannot get his footing on how to stop the momentum of the Harris-Walz ticket, it seems like he's already dropping seeds that he is going to question the outcome of the election if he loses in November. He has gone on record to say that the elevation of the vice president to the top of her party's ticket as quote-unquote unconstitutional, and accusing her of taking part in a coup. As if this was something, and he has used the term coup, which is a politically charged word, to seem like there was an overthrow of some sort to take Biden down and put her in place. Talk to me about this as a journalist, as a writer. How these words, unconstitutional, this is a coup, these are words that carry a lot of weight and a lot of meaning, and it doesn't, and it's not good. This is not good word. These are not sound words that you want to ascribe to a person running for office. What's your take on that, brother?
Yeah, I push back on a lot of the journalists that I see covering these stories and the ways that the headlines are written and the stories themselves, because it is as if he's starting to do this, or is as if this is a new tactic for him. But Donald Trump was saying that the election was rigged against him starting back in 2015. Right? Donald Trump won the election with an asterisk there in 2016 and still said it was rigged, right? And so, like, the idea that the election was rigged has always been a part of his strategy, but it also speaks to what we talked about in the last segment, which is they don't believe in elections, right? He does not believe in the democratic process. He does not believe in people being able to vote as the way that we decide about power. If we think back just to, I think it was only 2 weeks ago when he was speaking to a Christian group, telling them, you just need to vote this one more time and then you won't have to vote again, right? The idea that people should not be voting is really baked into the message of what Donald Trump is as a candidate and what he believes. Donald Trump doesn't believe that he can fairly lose an election, no matter what the polls say, no matter what the people say, no matter what the crowds look like, no matter what the issues are. Donald Trump does not believe that he can lose. And we can even hear this coming from members of his own family, his niece and nephew, Mary and Fred Trump, who have written books and come out and been on various different kinds of media talking about him. Donald Trump does not believe that he can lose. Donald Trump, if he loses, it has to have been rigged, or it has to have been a system problem. But the problem is he believes that about himself, but then he goes out and says it in the world. And we know that Donald Trump knows and believes that if you just say something enough times, people will start to believe it. That issue particularly I think about in my own family, right? I have a cousin who has been talking to me about how, well, Kamala Harris isn't actually black. And I'm like, you mean this 2-week-old theory that Donald Trump just spouted out in an interview now is something that people are saying, right? And so this idea that the election is going to be rigged is something that he has been saying for 9 years. And so there are plenty of people who do not trust the democratic process, do not trust elections simply because Donald Trump hasn't got what he wanted in each of those elections. And I think it's a really, really important thing for people to pay attention to, that message is really, really problematic for us.
Very problematic, and it's if it wasn't real, if this wasn't reality, it's laughable. It would be deemed as laughable. But because this is reality, we have to take it as such and not assume anything, especially when it comes out the mouth of that man. So we definitely do it. We got like 10 seconds. Go ahead, brother.
I will say it is laughable because it is absurd, but also it plays on the fears and concerns that people have had around elections, the fears and concerns that we have about various different things, because our government has not always operated in ways that have been honest and fair, and
I agree.
Especially to black people. And he's playing on that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Jared, it has been always a great honor, privilege, and pleasure to have an opportunity to chat with you one more time. Really quickly, how can people find you, Jared, online?
You can find me on all social media at Jarrett Hill. Jarrett is Jarrett. Hill. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and all of the different places. And you can check out my book, Historically Black Phrases, From I Am One of Your Little Friends to Who All Gonna Be There, available wherever books are sold.
He is the 55th NAACP Image Award winner for outstanding literary work, serving as the co-author of that book along with Tre'vell Anderson. Congratulations, Jared, and more importantly, thank you so much for being a part of the conversation here on Areva Martin in real time. We talk to you soon, brother.
Thank you.
Folks, stay with us. More conversation up next here on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton. Here's the latest on the Black Information Network. Baltimore's National Night Out events were rained out last week, so events were held across the city Tuesday night. City leaders and police attended more than 40 events, giving officials and residents a chance to get together, strengthen relationships, and commit to building a better, safer Baltimore. Black Mayor Brandon Scott says building connections is an ongoing process that takes collaboration every day, and they're an important platform to build a better sense of community, boost engagement, and cooperation. New York City Mayor Eric Adams' administration continues